I didn't react the first time I heard it. That's the part I still struggle to explain, not the sound itself, but my own indifference to it. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like background noise, like the hum of a refrigerator or the distant sigh of traffic, something your brain registers and immediately files away as irrelevant. It sounded too normal to be anything important. I've worked the late shift at Callaway Logistics for 3 years now. It's a small freight coordination office wedged between a dollar store and a tire shop, positioned just close enough to the highway that you can hear the constant low murmur of passing traffic through the walls, a sound that becomes, after enough nights, indistinguishable from silence itself. During the day, the place has a heartbeat. Phones ring without pause. The bay doors groan open and slam shut every 20 minutes. Drivers track mud through the lobby and argue cheerfully about routes. The printer in the corner runs hot and smells faintly of burning plastic. Someone, always someone, is microwaving fish in the break room at noon. After 9 p.m., all of that drains away. My shift runs 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. I handle delayed shipment reports, update tracking entries in the system, and manage overnight correspondence with clients in different time zones. It's methodical work, repetitive in the way that becomes, after long enough, oddly comforting. I don't mind being alone. That's important context. I'm not someone who frightens easily or who fills silence with noise just to feel less isolated. I grew up in a quiet house. I've always found empty rooms easier to think in. The late shift suits me in ways most people wouldn't understand. The office has 3 sections: the front desk area near the entrance, the main workspace with 6 desks arranged in 2 rows, and a narrow hallway connecting to a storage room and a small restroom at the back. Fluorescent lights line the ceiling, the kind that buzz faintly at a frequency just below conscious awareness, something you only notice once you've stopped noticing everything else. By 11:30 p.m., the building feels hollow in a way that has nothing to do with square footage. It's the absence of warmth, the sense that the space is returning to something it was before people arrived. That night was a Tuesday. Tuesdays are slow without exception. I'd been entering delivery confirmations for about an hour when the industrial heater clicked on with its familiar dull metallic knock, the sound it always made when it cycled up from standby. I glanced at the clock above the printer out of habit. 12:14 a.m. That's when I heard it. Daniel. Not loud, not whispered. It landed in the room the way a voice does when someone is standing just behind you, speaking at a perfectly normal volume, casual, unhurried. The tone of someone calling you back to a conversation you'd stepped away from. I didn't turn around. My first instinct, almost automatic, was to check my browser tabs. I sometimes leave news sites or reference pages open, and autoplay audio isn't uncommon. I paused my typing, listened. There was nothing, just the heater running, just the highway breathing outside. No videos open, no notifications. The speakers showed no activity. I turned in my chair. The office was empty. All 6 desks dark, chairs pushed in, screens asleep. The front door was locked. I could see the deadbolt from where I sat. The hallway light was on, casting its usual thin yellow rectangle across the floor. I sat still for longer than I probably needed to. Then I made the decision that seems, in retrospect, like either great rationality or willful blindness. I told myself it was the building. Air through ductwork behaves strangely in older structures. Pipes expand as temperatures drop. Sound travels through ventilation systems in ways that seem to defy the architecture. The human auditory system is also remarkably, sometimes embarrassingly, good at extracting speech patterns from ambient noise. It's called pareidolia, but for sound. Audiological pattern recognition. Your brain hears what it expects to hear. I went back to work. At 12:37 a.m. I heard it again. Daniel. This time it was different. Not just in clarity, though it was clearer, more defined, but in location. The first voice, if I'd placed it at all, had seemed to come from somewhere behind me. This one came from the hallway. I stopped typing mid-entry. The cursor blinked patiently on the screen. I waited for a follow-up sound. Footsteps, a door, anything that might give the voice a body, a source, an explanation I could file away and forget. Nothing. I stood up slowly and walked to the hallway entrance. "Hello?" I said quietly, feeling slightly ridiculous before the word was even out. No response. The storage room door was closed. The restroom door was open, light off. I walked to the restroom first, checked it, flipped the light, confirmed it empty. Then I opened the storage room. Stacked cardboard boxes labeled in red marker. A mop and bucket in the corner. Cleaning supplies on metal shelving. No one hiding between the rows, not that there was room to. I walked back to my desk and sat down. I rebuilt the rational explanation. I committed to it. At 1:03 a.m., my phone vibrated on the desk beside the keyboard. A text message from my sister, Renata. "Are you still at work?" I looked at the message longer than the question required. Renata doesn't text past midnight. She has 2 children under 5 and is asleep before 10 on most nights. "Yes," I replied. "Why?" 3 typing dots appeared immediately, as if she'd been watching for my response. They disappeared. Nothing came. I waited 2 minutes. Then I got up and walked to the front door, tested the handle, pressed my palm flat against the glass panel beside it, and looked out at the parking lot. My car was there. The lot was empty beyond it. No other vehicles. No figures standing in the shadows between the light poles. I checked the lock again. Secured. When I turned back toward the office, I heard it for the 3rd time. "Daniel." It didn't come from the hallway. It didn't come from across the room. It came from directly beside my left ear, from the narrow space between my desk and the wall, as if someone had been crouching there, waiting for me to turn away from the door. I felt the word more than I heard it, a vibration that seemed to pass through the cartilage of my ear and settle somewhere behind my eyes. I froze completely. Every voluntary muscle went still. The kind of stillness that isn't a choice. That's purely biological, the nervous system deciding on your behalf that motion is currently inadvisable. The voice was not aggressive. It was not distorted or mechanical or wrong in any way that would have made it easier to dismiss. It was familiar in a way I couldn't source. Not a voice I consciously recognized, but one that felt as if I should. Calm. Patient. The tone of someone who has been waiting and is content to continue doing so. I stood like that for somewhere between 10 seconds and a minute. The heater had shut off. The building was completely, profoundly silent, the kind of silence where you start hearing your own pulse. I turned my head toward the wall, white paint, the shadow of the desk lamp, my own reflection, faint and pale, in the dark window on the far side of the room. I stepped backward. My chair rolled out from behind me, its wheels loud enough to sound like a shout. It took me another full minute before I thought to open the security camera application on my computer. It was a reflex born less from strategy than from the need to do something, to insert some layer of objective verification between myself and what I'd just experienced. We have 4 cameras: front entrance, loading dock, hallway, and main office. I clicked through to the hallway feed first. Empty. Storage door closed. Restroom door open. No movement, no anomalies. Then I switched to the main office camera. The feed showed my desk from the upper corner of the room. It showed my chair. It showed me, standing there facing the wall, exactly as I was. Except it didn't. On the monitor, the figure at my desk, the figure that was supposed to be me, captured in real time, was facing the hallway. Not the wall. I looked at the monitor, then at myself, then at the monitor again. The position was wrong, not slightly, not ambiguously, clearly, distinctly wrong. In the live feed, my head was turned toward the hallway entrance. In the room, my head was turned toward the wall. I told myself it was lag, a buffer delay, a glitch in the wireless connection between the camera and the receiver, old hardware, old firmware, old building. I moved my head slowly to the right, watching the monitor. The figure in the feed moved its head slowly to the left, opposite. I closed the application immediately. The desktop returned, normal, still. My reflection in the now dark monitor showed me exactly as I was, alone, standing at my desk, facing forward. My hands were not shaking, but only because I was clenching them. At 1:12 a.m. my phone vibrated again. Unknown number. The kind that shows no preview, no contact name, just a blank notification. The message contained one word: Daniel. No punctuation, no context, no follow-up. I checked the number. Blocked ID. I didn't reply. I looked at the screen for a long moment, then turned the phone completely off, holding the button until it went dark, and set it face down on the desk. The moment I set it down, I heard my name again, soft, close, from somewhere behind me that I was certain, absolutely certain, had been empty for the past 3 hours. Daniel. I did not turn around. I don't fully understand why. It wasn't paralysis. It was something more deliberate than that. Something in my body had made a quiet, executive decision that turning around was the wrong move, that whatever had been saying my name was, in some fundamental way, waiting for exactly that. So I stood there, looking at the dark computer monitor, watching my own reflection watch me back. I listened for breathing, for the sound of weight shifting on the floor, for anything that would give it dimension, location, mass. Nothing. At 1:17 a.m. the front door handle rattled. Once, a single deliberate motion, neither tentative nor frantic. The sound of someone trying a door they expected might open, checking calmly to see if it would. I walked to the entrance, slowly. Every step on that linoleum floor sounded enormous. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no headlights, no figure stepping back from the door, no shadow retreating. Just the lot, and my car at the far end of it, and the highway beyond the fence doing what it always did. The handle didn't move again. I stood at the door for another minute, then stepped back into the office. The overhead lights flickered. Once, a single brief stutter, then held. In the silence that followed, right beside my ear, so close it moved the air. Daniel. I closed my eyes, not in panic. There was no panic anymore, which was its own kind of frightening. I closed my eyes because I'd had the sudden, irrational conviction that listening without any visual input might help me understand what I was hearing, whether it was real, where it was coming from. It didn't repeat. At 1:26 a.m., I packed my bag. I left the remaining entries unfinished, something I had never done in 3 years. I turned off all the lights. I locked the front door behind me and stood in the parking lot for a moment, breathing cold air that smelled like exhaust and late February. I sat in my car before starting it, watching the office windows. All dark. Nothing moved inside. There was nothing to see. And I sat there watching it anyway, because leaving felt like the beginning of something I couldn't name. I drove home without the radio. My apartment is a 15-minute drive from the office, up 2 flights of stairs in a building that is old without being charming. I live alone. This has never bothered me. I plugged my phone in, and it powered back on automatically. No new messages, no missed calls. Renata had never followed up. I went to the bathroom to wash my face. Cold water, the kind that makes you feel like you're reasserting your claim on physical reality. I dried my hands and stood at the sink, looking at my reflection, convincing myself methodically that I was home. From the hallway outside the bathroom, Daniel. Same tone, same proximity. The patient voice of someone who has been waiting since before I got there. I stood in the bathroom doorway for a long moment. The hallway was dark. My bedroom door was open. The living room was dark. There was no one there. I knew there was no one there, in the way you know things that your body refuses to fully accept. I didn't check the closets. I don't know why. I went to bed and lay there with the lamp on, listening to the building breathe. At exactly 2:17 a.m., my phone screen lit up on the nightstand. No notification sound, no vibration, just the lock screen activating on its own, the display brightening in the dark room. The time read 2:17 a.m. Beneath it, in the space where notification previews appear, no app icon, no sender name, no number, just text. Daniel. Nothing else. I watched it until the screen went dark again. Then I lay in the dark with my eyes open, listening to the absolute silence of an empty apartment, and I understood, with a certainty that had nothing to do with logic, that the silence was not empty at all. It was full of something that had learned my name. I haven't worked a late shift since. I transferred to the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. rotation and accepted the pay cut without discussion. I changed my phone number, replaced the device entirely. The office replaced the cameras after I submitted a formal report. The IT company they hired found no record of any malfunction, no corrupted footage, no signal interference, no evidence that the feeds had ever displayed anything irregular. I've started sleeping with the television on. Sometimes in the space between conversation and quiet, in parking garages, in empty corridors, in the 3 seconds before a room fills with people, I catch myself listening. Not for footsteps, not for doors, just for 2 syllables, spoken in a voice that sounds almost familiar. And in the quiet between sounds, in that particular texture of silence that isn't quite silence at all, I almost hear it, waiting still, patient as it has always been, waiting for me to turn around and answer,